Welcome to Alpha Coding Podcast, an all-access pass to medical coding and billing pro tips that help you start your week off smarter. And now, here is your host, Toni Elhoms.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Alpha Coding Podcast series. I am your host, Toni Elhoms. Welcome to episode 24 of the podcast. Today is June 15th, and I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. And today we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, pro tips for polishing your public speaking skills. It's estimated that over 75% of the population suffers from a condition called glossophobia, and this is the fear of public speaking, like an intense fear. So I want to give you some great pro tips that are going to help you polish your skills. Before we dive into our topic, it's time for your Monday dose of positivity, the Mindset Monday tip. And it's brought to you by Contempo Coding, which is an on-demand educational resource provider created for coders by coders. They specialize in affordable coding certification prep courses to help you accelerate in your career. Right now, they're offering $100 off the Certified Risk Adjustment Coding Prep course when you order through our affiliate website. Visit our website, alphacodingexperts.com, and head over to the Deals and Discounts tab for a link to take advantage of this absolute steal of a deal. So our Mindset Monday tip is all about the importance of not wasting your energy on things that are beyond your control. And I have to remind myself of this all the time because I'm guilty of this same thing. The quote I want to share with you says, "If you can't do anything about it, then let it go. Don't be a prisoner to things that you can't change." This quote is so true. And I know that we all kind of get caught up in this same thing. And it's really just a mental battle. So you can't prevent the storm from coming, but you can prepare yourself for it. So always try to focus on the things that you can control, and your life is going to be much more peaceful and fulfilling. So today we're going to cover my top 10 pro tips for polishing your public speaking skills. I've been on basically a virtual speaking tour for the last month or so, and I've spoken to over 4 AAPC chapters, and I have 4 more chapters to visit. So these techniques can also apply to your day-to-day interactions and communications with your colleagues, your team. So I'm going to give you some really great pro tips to help you deploy immediately. So this brings me to my pro tip number 1. Preparation is key. So you definitely want to have prepared lots of different elements of your presentation. That includes the content, the slides, and making sure that the slides look really clean and are polished and there aren't any glaring mistakes or errors. And then you also want to give yourself plenty of time to edit, because if you create your presentation and then you edit it on the same day, you're going to really be blind to the content. So give yourself enough time to build the content, review the content, edit the content, and then practice your presentation. So getting in front of a mirror can be really helpful. I find that recording yourself on Zoom or some of the other platforms can be really helpful as well, because you can watch yourself in the playback, and then that playback can give you so much insight as to your body language, the efficacy of your communication, some things that you might need to tweak along the way. And in the preparation phase, you also want to make sure that you're always thinking about your audience while you're preparing the content and the flow of the presentation, and really focus it on something that you would want to hear. We've all been in that situation where we're sitting in a presentation and the presenter is not doing a very good job. And so it's like more of a snooze fest than an actual presentation. So keep your audience in mind always as you're building your content and preparing. Pro tip number 2, know your subject matter inside and out. I see a lot of folks go wrong on this. So if you can't take the topic that you're going to present and make it so simple that a 5th grader could understand it, then you don't understand the topic enough to teach and present on it. And I mean that with all sincerity, because you should not be teaching or presenting on a topic that you don't know inside and out, because the audience members will likely have questions and they'll ask for examples and really real world practical application of the technical topic that you're describing. So you want to really come prepared, and you want to know that subject matter inside and out. And if you don't, your audience is going to be able to tell very quickly. Pro tip number 3, know your audience. So this is a lesson I've had to learn the hard way many times. If you don't know your audience, then you're not going to be able to adequately prepare the presentation and really tailor it for the audience's needs. So if you're speaking and presenting to a coder dominant audience, then you've got to keep things very technical and guideline friendly and compliance rules. Now, if you're presenting to an audience full of doctors or healthcare providers, the message has to be a lot different. The tone has to be different. The details, everything is different. So you really have to be able to tweak your content and tweak your presentation skills based on your audience. Your audience is going to dictate your message, and your message is going to dictate your flow, and your flow is going to dictate your efficacy. So it's super important that you know your audience. Pro tip number 4, the size of your audience determines many factors. So what I mean by this is if you're talking to an audience of 5 people versus 100 people, your strategy and your approach has to change. This is going to help a lot as you're preparing your content, your handouts, and really the flow of your presentation. So this also is going to help you understand the positioning of the room, how you should break up the audience if you're going to have them in work groups, whatever the style of your presentation is going to be. Knowing the size of your audience is going to give you a lot of power in terms of preparation. And the size of your audience is going to determine the types of handouts and resources that you use in conjunction with the presentation. Pro tip number 5, arrive early. This gives you enough time to really get in the zone. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of focus, and you have to really be on. And you have to be on for a long period of time. So it's super important that you are prepared and you're able to arrive at the venue that you're speaking at early. And if you're presenting virtually, the same concept applies. You want to be in the meeting, you want to be ready to go well before the presentation. What's going to happen is your nervous system's going to kick in because you're going to start to feel those jitters, and it's totally normal. Everybody feels these pre-presentation jitters, but the key is being able to control that energy. So by arriving early, you're already setting yourself up for success. And I always compare public speaking to performing or singing or dancing. Anybody that's been a performer knows you've got to be on it because the show must go on. And if you're in a situation where you're panicked because you're late, and trust me, I have been there, you're not going to be in the best frame of mind as you're starting your presentation. Pro tip number 6, keep your energy up. So your energy level has to be super high. And I'm talking high off the charts because everyone in the room can feel your energy. And the audience genuinely wants you to succeed as the presenter. I know everybody sat in the audience and they've been in a situation where the presenter was not comfortable, they were nervous, and it just makes everybody in the room feel nervous for them. It's an uncomfortable situation. So just know that your audience is really in tune with your energy. So you've got to keep that energy level up very high. I've seen presenters that have very low energy and they're not as effective as presenters that have high energy. Pro tip number 7, control your breathing. So breath control is critical, especially with public speaking, because many people manifest physical symptoms as if they're in a fight or flight response mode. So there's a lot of things that are out of your control as a presenter, but one of the things that you can control is your breathing. Your audience is going to be able to pick up on the rate of your breath. So you want to do everything you can to remain calm. The reason why a lot of people struggle with this is because their body interprets the situation as basically the lion is coming after you and is going to attack you. So the body manifests these physical symptoms. Your heart's racing, your palms are sweating, you're feeling like the lion is going to attack you. And that is triggered by the fear of public speaking. So when you control your breath, you can actually control your physiologic responses. And so that is something that if you struggle with public speaking, start with your breathing. Once you control your breathing, that's going to make you a much more effective speaker. Pro tip number 8, don't read to the audience. This one is absolutely non-negotiable. I have sat in so many presentations where the presenter reads the slides. You want to use visuals and bullet points. The worst thing you can do is load up a slide deck with a bunch of text and no visuals. I try to keep my presentations with mostly visuals and 4 to 5 bullet points max. If you load up your slides with a bunch of technical text, your audience is not going to be able to follow it. And I'm not talking about technical stuff, because with technical topics, you will need desk references and aids and handouts. But when you're presenting your slides, those are the visual reminders to you in terms of what your presentation is and what you need to focus on next. It's absolutely critical that you do not stand up in front of the audience and read to them. That's not going to resonate with anyone. Pro tip number 9, engage the audience. So your audience is there to be engaged. So this is going to depend on the size of your audience, but there's always a way to get your audience involved. If you're presenting virtually, you can utilize polls, which are really cool. They can be used in your presentation to engage the audience and also give you a good baseline as to where they're at in the topic that you're presenting. And ask them questions. Ask them how they feel about certain topics. Open it up for a discussion if that's possible with the time frame that you've been given, because when you get the audience engaged, the room is a totally different vibe, and you can connect with people on a much more meaningful and deeper level when you get them engaged. Pro tip number 10, work the room. So one of the worst things you can do is stand behind the podium, and I've actually seen speakers hold on to the podium like they're holding on for dear life. It's a situation where you can visibly see that they're uncomfortable with the situation. So working the room means that you are scanning the room, you're making eye contact with people, not just scanning, but actually making direct eye contact. You want to make sure that you're making eye contact with people in the far edges of the room, the corners in the back. Everybody needs to feel like you connected with them in some way, and also move around the room. I like to move around the room and at least circle around the room several times in the presentation, because it gets the audience refocused, and it also takes away from the monotony of a presentation when you move around. So grab a pen and paper to summarize my top pro tips for polishing your public speaking skills. Number 1, preparation is key. Number 2, know your subject matter inside and out. Number 3, know your audience. Number 4, the size of your audience determines many things. Number 5, arrive early. Number 6, keep your energy up. Number 7, control your breathing. Number 8, don't read to the audience. Number 9, engage the audience. Number 10, work the room. So it's time for this week's coding pro tip, and it's brought to you by Clara. Clara is a holistic, secure communication platform that specializes in telehealth and telemedicine. Take your practice virtual in a matter of minutes. Mention my code ALPHACODING for special pricing. Visit claire.com for more information. If you have a coding related question and would like it to be featured in one of our coding pro tips, please reach out to me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. So this week's coding pro tip comes to us from Florida. Hi, Toni. My manager is asking me to add modifier CS to all claims to ensure that we get full reimbursement from insurance companies. Is this appropriate? Well, I'm really glad you asked me this question, because this just came up with a client this week. No, it's not appropriate. So the CS modifier is specifically used for cases related to COVID-19 or testing related to COVID-19. So if the encounter has nothing to do with COVID-19, that modifier is not applicable. And you should never be using a modifier just to receive full reimbursement. There's compliance rules that have to be followed. So you definitely want to take this information back to them and hopefully make some changes. Please remember to hit that subscribe button now so you never miss another episode. Also, be sure to drop us a rating and review on iTunes. We really appreciate your support. So this concludes today's episode. Until next week, thank you for listening to the Alpha Coding Podcast. We'll see you next Monday.
For more information about medical coding and billing pro tips, including how to hire alpha coding experts, follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or visit our website at www.alphacodingexperts.com.